Well, guys, it's no secret DJ Lagway has struggled through 5 interceptions on Saturday night against LSU. And frankly, everybody's asking the question, what's going on? I mean, even Steve Spurrier was quoted this week saying that he looks off. Well, he looks off because he is off. The off season that DJ Lagway has had has been, according to his agent, as abnormal gets. And it stems from some lingering injuries and some injuries that have compounded. There was a core muscle injury that came up during last season that he had surgery on in January. There was a hamstring and groin injury that he got in the Georgia game last year that he was able to come back from a couple weeks later. His quarterback coach, JP Tillman, told me and our colleague Chris Hummer that, frankly, the groin and the hamstring injury then created a situation where Lagway was kind of overcompensating for those injuries, and it was making a more arm-dominant throwing motion. That was Tillman's kind of read on the situation. His kind of guess, having worked with DJ for years and years and years. Tillman is based in the state of Texas, where DJ is from. From that, it inflamed an old shoulder injury that he actually got from baseball when he was in high school, that he rehabbed at the time. In the offseason, Florida and Lagway's camp went to 2 experts, an expert surgeon out in California and the Texas Rangers doctor as well. And in consultation, they developed a rehab plan for Lagway. Well, that basically meant that Lagway effectively did not throw a football from January through April. He started kind of ramping things up in May, in June. Then he had a calf strain right before camp. And so that threw things off. So not only was Lagway's development kind of curtailed a little bit, but there were changes that Tillman wanted to make to how he strides into his throws, how he holds the ball during his windup to protect his shoulder, that they weren't able to put all the way in. Then in camp, Lagway's not going every single day in camp to start. They kind of had to ramp him up. And Florida's wide receivers also get hurt. Dallas Wilson still hasn't touched the field. They expected him to be a significant contributor as a freshman. Trey Wilson, Eugene Wilson III, who missed half of last season, had another different lower body injury and missed some scrimmages in camp. And Aidan Mizell also had some soft tissue injuries, I should say. So you put all of that together, and yeah, there's a reason Florida's offense looks dysfunctional. There is absolutely no way of saying it besides DJ Lagway has to play better. It cannot look like this, and it was not expected to look like this coming into the season. But at the end of the day, you kind of look inside and you say, well, yeah, you can kind of understand why he's played that poorly this season, but it better get right really quick because in 48 hours, they're playing a Miami team that is really, really good, and it's a Miami team that embarrassed them last year. And so we're having all these conversations about Billy Napier's job security that we're probably going to continue to have for a little bit here in the season, and some of that is due to Lagway's poor play. But they got to get it looking right on Saturday, or it's going to get late early for Florida.
One of the big things for me the last couple of days has been tracking player availability stuff heading into the weekend. And one of the things, just to follow up on Richard talking about Florida, that worth making note of, and this is something Richard was on top of coming out of Florida's game that this past weekend, is Caleb Banks. Caleb Banks, arguably the best overall player on that team, defensive lineman who entered the year with a legitimate chance to be a first-round draft pick. They're going to be moving forward without him now after he re-aggravated an injury that he had dealt with that had plagued him through the early part of the year and prevented him from playing in the first couple games. And then, unfortunately, first game back, gets hurt again. A player with Florida ties that have been tracking the last couple of days, who's now at another school, Scooby Williams. So a key piece as a linebacker at Texas A&M. Texas A&M obviously coming off big win over Notre Dame. He got hurt during the course of that game. I think actually, when he had an interception, hurt his ankle. They've been putting him through testing. They haven't gotten a definitive answer as to what's going on as of yet, and he would be a big loss if he was out for any real period of time. But there was at least optimism the last conversation that I had that was not going to be or end up being a long-term or season-ending type deal, even though it seems like tomorrow or Friday you should know more in terms of just what actually is going on with that and what the actual injury is and the timetable. And also Bryce Anderson, everyone saw what would happen with that really scary situation. Mike Elko did make note coming out of that, just that Bryce is doing well and should play football again or will play football again, which good news, just considering how bad that looked and how scary that was when that happened.
Yeah, Florida coach Billy Napier. Yeah, put this graphic back up for our listeners and people watching on. I mean, look at this. Billy Napier, career winning percentage at Florida right now is 48.7%. If I can read correctly, that's the worst since 1949, when a guy named Raymond B. Wolf, you never hear that type of name anymore because it was so old-timey, folks. It's been that long since we've seen a coach with a record like this at Florida. We all know the pressure's on Billy Napier. I'm not so sure they just, well, you beat Miami, maybe you give yourself a state of execution, but the bye week's coming up, guys, and that's when you usually like to make changes if you make changes. The one thing with Florida, though, their defense is only allowing 12 points, I think 7 points per game. They've allowed only 3 offensive touchdowns all season, and they've lost 2 games. Their defense is pretty darn good. It's just that the play calling, the offense, the mistakes.
Yeah, they should fire their offensive play caller.
Hey, who calls the plays there? Seems like we ask that question every 3 weeks there at Florida. Billy Napier, very much. Oh man, maybe dead man walking. But the spread on this, guys, is about a touchdown or less, right? And there's a reason for it. Florida's defense is pretty good, and you got DJ Lagway, who we're all just waiting for him to turn it on, right?
Yeah, I think it's a situation of that defense. I mean, how often do you ever see a quarterback throw 5 interceptions and the team only lose by 10 points, one of those interceptions being a pick 6?
Right.
So my thing is, and you see a lot of this, especially when one side of the ball on a team is really good. At what point in time does that side of the ball just drop the rope and say, fellas, we're not getting any help here, especially when it's your defense? Because defense is something that can be a little bit cyclical, and there are things, and defense, it's just hard to do, obviously, in college football, to be really good in this era of college football that we're in. So eventually, you might see the little infighting, the locker room stuff. I don't know. And Florida's, as Matt has said, Florida's got other issues along its defensive front as far as injuries are concerned as well. George Gumbs still hasn't played this season. LJ McRae is going to be out for a significant time with an injury as well. Brandon Bett, you will note, the player who spit on the USF player, was not suspended for the LSU game last week because they didn't really have a ton of bodies on the defensive front. So, yeah, there are definitely a lot of issues for Florida right now.
And another starting defensive lineman who was out last week, too. I don't know what his status is for this week. But there was another starting defensive lineman, Mekhi Burrell, am I pronouncing that correctly, who was out this past weekend to go along with that. So plagued by injuries, but at the same time still playing well. And the good thing for Florida is when you have a talent like DJ Lagway, regardless of what's happened the last few weeks, he does have the capability of turning it on and looking like the DJ Lagway that we expected to see at any point. Maybe it ends up being this weekend.